All right, so let's kick things off with Bacurau, right? This is a Brazilian film. I'm not gonna really specify the genre of it as yet, right? It's from two directors. I'm not even gonna try to call to pronounce their names. It's kind of hard, but the two main stars of this show, the two big leads, are Sonia Braga
Right.
and Udo Kier, right? You should remember him from movies like Blade, or what I mean, like stuff from Winter Herzog or Lars von Trier, what I mean. So yeah, he's like probably one of the most famous slash popular German actors, right? But
Right.
yeah, so as I said earlier on, I was hearing a lot of great things about this. This show had a lot of hype. People were calling this one of the best of the year, right? And in a year where we had probably limited to no theatrical releases. Yeah, that's a big deal, right? Something like this being a big deal. So what it's about, right? It centers on a town, right? Called Bacurau, a small village, right? And around that time now, there's this elections that's coming up, right? It's kind of hinted, but this guy is going up for me actually, and from a few scenes that we see early on is like he just couldn't care less about the town. You know what I mean? He just kind of shows up. He gives people expired, food and snack and whatnot. There's an issue involving water, so the dam is pretty much blocked. So farmers can't, what I mean. So it's an issue for farmers and whatnot, right? But the inhabitants of the village itself, more or less getting by the best that they could, right? They're not poor, they're not disenfranchised or whatnot, right? It's actually kind of interesting that they have smartphones and whatnot, but nobody actually has like laptops or anything like that, which is weird, right? But there's a reasoning behind that maybe I might spoil, maybe I won't, right? But the
Right.
point is, if the community is very, very, very tight knit. Everybody knows everybody in the village and whatnot, right? And it starts off basically with a nurse, right, who shows up, and she has like vaccines and whatnot. And during her stay there, well, actually, she came because the big matriarch of the village, I think she was like in a mid 90s or whatever, passed away, right? And the everybody comes through, when they have this lavish funeral and all that kind of stuff. After that, some really peculiar things happen, right? One of which includes, the presence of the mayor and whatnot, and we get to see how shady he is, right? So it's all these like kind of off things that going on there, you know what I mean? While everybody kind of going about their lives. There's even one scene, it's actually in the trailer, where this old guy who's actually a teacher, right? He he's more or less talking to his to students about what I mean, this is our village and whatnot. And then one of them says, we just kind of pull up the place itself on Google Maps. So yeah, he actually goes on Google Maps and there's no sign of Bacurau at all.
Right.
So yeah, literally that village is just non-existent. You know what I mean? Technically in Brazil and for the rest of the world now. So it's kind of weird how that is. But what happens afterwards, right? And then I'll just jump into the review from here. Is that there are a group of foreigners that show up, right? And we actually learn that they are mercenaries, right? They have some sort of ulterior motive going on. It kind of involves them going into the village and more or less chasing people out, or if not chasing, more or less killing them. And from there now, that's where you get to see what the villagers are about, and then it kind of hints at the reason why why that village in particular is forgotten. And I'll stop there because I really don't want to spoil anything else. So me going in now and hearing things about it, you know what I mean? They call it a horror. I heard stuff that they had elements of sci-fi and stuff like that in it. It does, but it's more in a self-referential kind of way, right? So it's
Right.
more like they would just kind of reference a genre just to make a point, right? So case in point, um, slight spoiler, the foreigners themselves, right? One of them in particular has a UFO shaped drone. So they
Right.
use that. Well, she uses that basically to kind of like spy on the village itself, right? But like if you think about the whole UFO thing, you know what I mean, like aliens, invaders, and then compare that now to these foreigners themselves. So when I say foreigners, I mean, well, there's a bunch of American mercenaries. There's a couple of Brazilians, but they just there to help out, and then there's a German, right? Well, Udo Kier's character, who's like the leader. When you think about it from the context of the show, it's basically, well, it's this town, and it's basically, sorry, this village, and now you have these invaders come into the village now. You know what I mean? So if you think back to the history and all that kind of stuff, you could get the analogy there. So it kind of touches on that. It has a socio-political undertone to it as well, but
Right.
I would imagine that if you know a lot about Brazilian history, you'll kind of get the gist of what's going on. But for me, it was just kind of surface level, so I didn't need to kind of stop and think about it too much. But it's there, and it just adds an extra layer to what's going on. But what really makes the show work for me is how it just kind of flips the it just kind of just pulls the rug from under the viewer's feet basically, because you're there just kind of watching the show, seeing things play out, and like in my head, I know something is up, something weird gonna happen there. And then, swear to God, as they bring in the mercenaries, it just kind of switches into this grimy, grindhousey-esque kind of film though. And it kind of works.
Right.
I really love this movie. I dug the hell out of this movie. Just merely because of how they were able to just tell its story and make it all unique and distinct, but still draw from different genres, but not too explicitly enough. So, case in point, the intro to the show, right, where you see the opening credits, has the feel of, well, John Carpenter's The Thing, right? The way how it looks and how it's set up and whatnot. I don't want to spoil anything beyond that, but what I would say though, it kind of gives the impression that, oh, this is some kind of weird sci-fi film. But when you look at the image itself and what it's trying to see, and they kind of bring it back up later on, it's like, oh, okay, that's why that intro was the way it was. Another John Carpenter film that's referenced is Assault at Precinct 13. The whole idea of these band of individuals who have to go up against these gun-toting bad guys. You know what I mean? And it's just, you know, that's them trying to defend the place that they're at from these intruders, basically. So it has that. But like I said before, it's not explicitly saying, "Hey, we're referencing this show, we're referencing that show." It's just kind of there to be like, "Oh, okay, okay, I see what you're doing. Is all this spin on these tropes, basically, right?" But it has also a sort of like satirical vibe to it as well, too. So, it's kind of interesting, like how the villagers are, like people outside the village kind of look at them like, oh, they're just, poor, and what I mean, they don't know nothing, and they're like so detached from society and whatnot, blah blah blah. We shouldn't take you guys seriously. But when it's time now for them to defend the village, I was like, oh, okay. Now I understand why these guys are injured, because yeah, they real dreaders. Like like how they able to just hold their own. And I mean, I really dug that. Um, but really, what makes the show work is the script, the storytelling here. I will admit though, it is a bit of a slow burn, but once you go in and you just once you're locked in, and you're just watching things play out, it's like you see things just sort of happen, and I like how it just all kind of culminates into this appropriately violent but still excellent climax and conclusion. I really dug that.
Right.
The cinematography is gorgeous from start to end with this movie. Also dug the music for this. Like it has some traditional Brazilian music in it as well. It have some. Oh yes, well okay. So another genre this show pulls heavy from is well the Western genre. Sorry. So it has a couple of spaghetti western esque songs that play throughout it. It's merely a couple of Italian songs, but it feels like they were in some western back in the days, right? And really, what this show is like, if one were to define it, it's what you call a weird western, not to be confused with a acid western, right? That would be
Right.
stuff like El Topo and what else, like Dead Man, which Jim Jarmusch made back in
Right.
'95 with Johnny Depp. You know what I mean? So it's not like, you know, postmodern Western basically, but it's more like it's a Western, yes, but it just draws from, other genres and whatnot. And yeah, you really do see that here. So really what it is just a modern Western, but it just has elements of more more of a thriller more than horror, right? And you know what I mean? Like there are some graphic scenes, right? Like graphic violence and whatnot, right? But it's
Right.
not to the extent like, oh my god, this is like the most horrific thing ever. You know what I mean? With the exception of one scene where I was like, wow, that is like one of the most horrific things I've seen in this movie. But it works in terms of the whole grindhousey feel to it, right? But yeah, really what it is what the show really reminds me of as far as westerns. You're familiar with High Plains Drifter or Peel Rider?
No,
Those
neither. No.
are
Right.
Clint Eastwood films.
Okay.
Basically, this guy coming into this town, and the town is under attack from these bad guys. So he has to more or less inspire the townspeople to defend themselves, and he taking the lead. So it's him and the townspeople going up against these bad guys. So it's that kind of vibe now. Peel
Right.
Rider, it's kind of a remake of High Plains Drifter, but it's that kind of vibe now. So you have these invaders, and you could think of it as colonists and all that kind of stuff, right? That really is one of the themes, right? Colonialism, basically. Um, but yeah, you could just imagine that kind of vibe going on there. But yeah, back to what I was saying. So yeah, the music is great. There's actually one song that they use, which was composed by John Carpenter himself. But for the life of me, I'm not sure what movie it's from because you know his style, right? That kind of dark synth heavy music, that that kind of thing that he did
Right.
for like Escape from New York or Assault on Precinct 13, that kind of music. But for the life of me, I'm not sure what movie it's from. Perhaps it's because I know he put out some music like a few years ago. I think it's before he put out the Halloween sequel that came out a while back. So it's maybe one of those. But that in itself, and they actually use it in the end, more or less fits the vibe of the movie. Yeah, it really has this kind of dark John Carpenter feel to it. You know what I mean? Especially with its unpredictability. Now. And yeah, really where the show shines is how unpredictable everything is. You're not sure what's going on. Like I say, just kind of watching everything play out. But when it all comes together, it's like, yeah, this real hard though. So um don't want to spoil anything else beyond that though, but I went in with expectations kind of lukewarm for this one because once again I was just hearing a lot of great things about it. People calling this one the best of the year and all that kind of stuff. But one thing is just that people can't really define what it is. So some people will go in expecting a horror, but it's not really a horror. But
Right.
it's that kind of vibe now. But went in, storytelling was great. I love how risky the narrative was because I know for some people they will watch this and be like, I'm not sure what to pick for what to get from this. Is this a drama? Is this a thriller? Is this an action film? Is this some kind of grimy B movie? And for me, the answer is all of the above, yes.
Right. Right.
And somehow it just works, right? So from writing, cinematography to just execution, yeah, this worked for me. And yes, I'll say this right off the bat. This is one of my favorite films of 2020. I don't care if it came out late 2019, but yeah, the movie technically came out this year. So yes, I have it up there as one of the best I've seen for this year, and I can't recommend this high enough. So for me, rating wise, I'm gonna give this a lighter, decent 4.5 out of 5. Man, this truly, truly, truly surprised me, but I did not expect the show to be that engaging, that entertaining, that unpredictable, and that crazy as well too. Because yeah, they go into some directions where you will not see coming. But really and truly, like despite the whole boring of genres and tropes and all that, it really does have a lot to say about Brazilian society. And it has a lot of depth to it, right? So. I mean, amidst the blood and guts and bullets, there's actually a lot of subtext in it. So I really dug that. So yeah, highly recommend you check out Bacurau. It is one of my favorite shows of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely give this a look. Unless you generally don't like to read subtitles. Although to be fair, there is some English, or I should say American dialogue in it. But other than that, if you just do like foreign language films or you just do like films with bloody violence for some reason, yeah, I would recommend you check this out. But if you are a fan, or if you just look for something different, right, outside of the norm or outside of Hollywood, yeah, by all means, give Bacurau a look. You will not be disappointed by it.